Ndala, 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 ndala. Welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk to you about prayers. Prayer and prayers in general. It has been a subject of many comments and messages in terms of the meaning of prayer, what prayer is, how to pray, especially if you are leaving religion and starting your new path in your spirituality. And so, in this video, I wanted to touch on that subject matter and give you things to consider and think about. So, the first one is to defining what prayer is. I think this is not an easy task. There are many definitions, depending if you're looking at it from a religious angle, from a spiritual angle, or just from a practitioner angle. But essentially, one has to understand that prayer is not exclusive to religion. Many of you may know about prayer through your religion, through the religion you were part of, whether it's Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, or whatever religion you were part of or had been introduced to. Sometimes you can be introduced to religion without really taking part of, especially if you do not develop the belief shared within that religion. But prayer has been around for as long as man has lived, as long as man has had a relationship with the divine. It has been a tool used to have and create a space where you can speak to the divine. It is often said that prayer, as opposed to meditation, that prayer is an opportunity to communicate with the divine, to speak, to ask for guidance, to ask for things, to express yourself. In opposition to meditation, which is often seen more of a moment for listening. Even though we often define it that way by saying prayer is when we speak to the divine and meditation is when we listen to the divine, I am more of an understanding that prayer includes both speaking and listening, especially as we get to the few points that I'm going to go over, because oftentimes when you pray, you may receive a divine message or a divine communication right there, right then. You may not necessarily need to wait for a sign or to wait for a few days in order to receive your answers. So sometimes the moment of prayer is a moment of communion with the divine, where the divine speaks directly to you and provides you the guidance you actually need. Whether it is through a dream, through a vision, through a thought, however it can manifest itself. So this is why I will always recommend not to limit yourself in terms of how your communication with the divine can take place. Oftentimes, prayer is seen as something that you initiate because you decided to make a time to take time for yourself. Maybe you have a prayer room where you go to when you want to pray. But essentially, prayer or communication with the divine can take place anytime, any place, anyhow. It could be initiated by you, where you call on the divine to guide you, to help you for whatever situation you're going through, or that you receive divine messages at a particular time. And oftentimes, it is oftentimes at the most opportune time for you. So look at prayer as just an opportunity to communicate with the divine. I say the divine, but prayer can also be used to communicate with your ancestors. It can be used to communicate with your higher self, with your soul, with your spirit, or with other things. But for the purpose of this video, we're going to concentrate with your communication with the divine. If you are interested, I may do a follow-up for communication with ancestors or your inner self. But the divine, because this is the most powerful force that you can communicate with. The divine, God, also known as the Most High. I usually use those terms interchangeably. So if later on I speak about the Most High, I mean the divine, I mean God, the highest, most powerful God. So if prayer is communication, that means it's a dialogue. And through that dialogue, when you have to kind of put a little bit aside the way prayer is taught through religion, where oftentimes in religion or within religion, you are being taught to recite certain things, to recite a passage of the Bible, to recite specific prayers that come from your denomination. For example, I have a background in Catholicism, so we were taught to recite the Ave Mary, the Our Father, as a way for us to start a prayer or to finish a prayer. Now, what you do have to understand is, and I get to this point later, is that religion may have each religion may have its particular way of defining what a prayer is, what is acceptable for within that religion in terms of how to pray and what is not. So if you come from a religious background, you may have those restrictions already embedded within you that you may want to review as you move towards spirituality, which is a lot more fluid. It doesn't mean anything goes, but it's still, it doesn't confine you to a place or specific words. So meaning that what prayer is, if it is a moment and instant where you're communing with God, that moment and instant can happen anywhere. You don't need to be in a church or a temple or a synagogue. You could be at home. You could be doing the dishes. You could be driving. You could be sleeping even. As I say, sometimes you can have divine messages through your dreams, divine messages through thoughts that comes to you, thoughts that are coming from the ether, thoughts that are coming straight directly from divine, God, from the divine, from angels, from all kind of well-beings. And because we're focusing on prayer, which is the moment of communication that we are open to what is going to be more beneficial for us, for our higher self, for our future, or for humanity as a whole. Okay, there are other kinds of prayers that deal with the darker side of it, but we're going to focus on the light, and we're going to focus on what is usually used as prayer communally. Now that we talked about what prayer is, we can talk about how to pray. This is probably one of the highest numbered questions that I receive in terms of how to pray, especially when you're moving from religion to spirituality, and African spirituality specifically. So how to pray, we've talked about it a little bit. If you're coming from a religious background, you're going to already have those guidelines. You can go see your pastor, your imam, your rabbi, your guru, or the person that's the teacher within the religion that you practice, and they will have kind of a specific way for you to do your prayers, for you to speak to the divine. Okay? Now, when you move out of the religion, and when you get back to either pre-religious times or to a spiritual path and spirituality in general, you will see that communing and speaking to the divine is just a matter of your own intention. Pre-religious time, human beings used to speak to the divine all the time, and you will receive information directly from the divine to you. Even when you look, depending on what sacred text you look, most of the sacred texts account for a moment where human beings were speaking directly to the divine, calling on the divine, and receiving an answer, an individual and precise answer. So this is not something that's new, this is not something that's far-fetched, and this is why I was telling you that prayer is not exclusive to religion. Prayer existed way before most of the religions were proclaimed. The ability to speak to the divine is not an extraordinary ability. It is not something that you need to be a chosen person or anything like that. It's really something that comes from your heart and the connection that you can establish with the divine because of who you are, because of your own intention, and because of the reasons why you wanted to commune with the divine. So then it helps you understand then, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time on the religious aspect because, as I said, each religion will have its own structure and how you're supposed to pray, what you're supposed to say, how your body is supposed to be in, how you're supposed to place your hands, your feet, your head, towards the sun, towards what direction you're supposed to be praying towards, etc., etc. So each religion will have their own particular, maybe some of them will also have how you're supposed to dress when you're praying. Depending on what religion you are, you cannot just start praying in your dirty clothes or however you want. What you need to do before you start praying, cleansing yourself, washing your feet, washing your hands, basically tuning out different things. So there are rules on how to go about religious rules. However, one of the things that I've noticed in terms of, all of the different religions and some of the spiritual path, don't get me wrong, because this is not something, this is not a flaw I've only seen in religions. There are spiritual paths where the same attitude is being taken, where we don't tell you, where you're not being told what is going on when you're praying. You're not being told in more detail. I think generally everyone will be told that when you are praying, you're communing with the divine, that you're opening yourself to receive divine wisdom. And so there's an exchange between you as a human being and the divine force that enables you to continue living. However, what is not being said to you when is being asked of you to use specific prayers, to be in specific position, your body to be in specific position. Oftentimes, it is not explained what is going on and why those specific positions have been chosen, are required oftentimes. The same as why you need to pray, for example, in a specific time of the day. So certain religions have a specific time of the day that you have to be praying. You cannot pray just however you feel like it. You have to pray within those different times. And there are spiritual paths also that I've noticed where you are also not being told why you need to recite a specific phrase, why you need to position yourself in a specific place, why you need to be wearing a specific type of clothing, why you need to do certain gesture or why not. So I think this is another flaw that often comes time when when there are notions in terms of power, meaning that either this person, your teacher, the pastor, or whatever, has information of why, but choose not to give it to you. Because maybe if you had that information, you wouldn't need the pastor anymore, you wouldn't need the teacher anymore, because you will understand much more fully the power of prayer. And you may also be able to conduct a full, powerful praying session on your own without having to need the organization or the institution. It may also be that your pastor, your teacher, your religious leader just doesn't know themselves, which in the same way is also a bit concerning because you are teaching others to do certain things that you don't know the true meaning and the true sense of it. And I think that's also important. And it puts the responsibility not just on your teacher, but on yourself. You should be inquiring when somebody is telling you to repeat certain phrases over and over and over again. That every time you start praying, you have to repeat those phrases or you have to repeat those specific prayers. You should be inquiring, why are you saying that? Not only why are you saying it, but also what does that mean? When you're looking at a prayer that you need to recite, look at every single words and see what are the meanings of those words. What are you doing? What are you invoking? What are your intention? What are you intending? What is happening in there? So those are questions that you intrinsically should have, especially if you are using your discernment, because your discernment will push you to question certain things and to seek answers to those questions, and answers that cannot just be pushed away by saying, this is the way we do it. No, there has to be a reason why you do it that way and not any other particular way. And as I've mentioned, every single religion has a way of doing it, and they're not doing it the same. Even within Christianity, going to the Catholic Church, the way you place your hands to pray is not going to the same when you go to the temple, to the Protestant churches, or the Evangelist church, the Baptist churches. The way they pray, for example, in the Baptist church and the Evangelist, they may be a lot more vocal, they may be a lot more louder, versus being maybe in a Catholic church where you pray either in unison with the community or you pray inwardly, quietly. And so when you look at that and you start wondering and asking yourself, how come the Hindus are praying this way? How come the Muslims are praying a certain way, where you have to put yourself in certain positions, where you have to pray with other men or with other women only? All of those things should raise question within yourself. Why is my particular religion doing it this way? And the same thing if you go to spirituality or for any spiritual path and they start telling you, oh, you have to draw a circle, you need to ask why. Why do I need to draw a circle? What is happening? What am I doing? What does that symbolize? How is that helping me to pray? How is this needed in order for me to pray? If whatever they're being introduced, if they ask you to recite whatever spiritual path, even African spiritual path, they ask you to recite specific things, you need to know why and you need to know what those things mean, especially if you do not speak the language. I mean, first of all, I would not recommend taking any African spiritual path if you do not speak the language of that path. Meaning, if you're going to go and be initiated in Ifa, you need to speak Yoruba. You need to understand what the language is, what the meaning that is. But that may be a talk for a conversation for a different video. But the point is, when you're speaking to the divine, when you're praying, you need to understand what you're saying, why you're saying it, and have some defined intention behind your prayer. And that sometimes that defined intention can be a lot more powerful than the words that you are using, especially if you have a lot of emotion behind it and you want to honor the divine and cherish the divine in such a way. That intention alone can disable any negative impact that a prayer that is not well constructed, that is not in your best interest, could do to you. But it's still very important that you make sure that you understand what is going on energetically, spiritually, and physically when you repeat over and over certain things out loud or innerly, when you point or place your hand in a specific direction, your hands, your feet, or your body in a specific position, or when you praise and empower and support specific people or institution within your prayer. You have to understand what is happening. You have to understand what you are saying. You have to understand also why you need to say what you say in a specific way, how to say things, and of course, as I mentioned, why you put your body, it has to be in a specific position, or your body, or your hands, or your feet, etc. You also need to understand the energy that's being transferred when you're praying. When you're praying with your intention, you are sending energy towards the object of your prayer. So if it is a divine, you're sending your energy towards the divine. If it is a specific person, you're praying for your children, or you're praying for your lover, you're praying for a friend or your grandmother, you're sending your energy towards that specific person. If you include institution within your prayer, you are sending energy towards that institution. And this explains, for example, why in the Catholic religion, every Catholic is required to pray, and in the prayer, it includes a prayer that supports the Catholic Church. So when people start wondering why this church has so much power in real life, because it is, to my knowledge, it is the only church that also constitutes a nation that's able, that at some point we're able to send armies, religious armies, in part of the world. And well, it is because the members of the Catholic religion pray specifically for the well-being of their church, for the success of their church. That means you have millions and millions of people throughout the world sending energy to the Catholic Church, which means that to physically defeat the Catholic Church is going to be very hard because there's going to be a lot of energy behind it to support it. Especially if you think about, countries in Africa, Latin America, Europe, North America who may be supporting the church. But it explains that this church does not have an inherent power on its own. It also derives power from the people who are part of the church and people who are praying for that church. Okay, so it's not, and this is why in the prayers, it states specifically that you have to believe in the church, not just in God, the Father, the Virgin Mary, Jesus Christ, but they include the Catholic Church in there and you have to recite it. So every time you're praying, you're sending out energy to God, to Jesus, to the Virgin Mary, but also to the Catholic Church. And that's just one example. It's a great exercise for you to look at the prayers that you've been asked to recite or required to recite, or even the songs that you are required to sing or use in church, to look at the meaning of the words. You can find on YouTube many people who looked at certain religious, quote-unquote religious songs in the US and seen that the history behind the song itself comes from a very dark place. So this is why you have to have this curiosity about what is being taught to you, and be inspired to ask for discernment every step of the way. Should I recite this? God, help me discern if this is a good prayer for me to recite. So if you are being given anything to recite, or anything for you to say out loud over and over, because this also goes for affirmation. Look at the affirmation you're being provided by your teacher or whoever is guiding you, and research what that affirmation means, especially if it's not in your own language, because sometimes you may be asked to say things that you don't fully understand. However, while you're saying those things, your energy goes towards whatever you're saying. So if you are praising the Catholic Church, your energy is going to go towards the Catholic Church to help protect it, maintain it, and so forth and so on. Now that's what's going on energetically. Spiritually, when you are in prayer, you're opening yourself to spirit. It doesn't mean that you're not open any other time. It just means that you're consciously focusing on the spiritual world. So you're not focusing on the physical and the material. This is why the energy that you're sending, let's say, to the Catholic Church, is not to a particular church somewhere. It's to the spiritual entity that exists with everyone else that come before you that started praying to that church. For the moment the church was created, a physical aspect of the church also was created due to all of the energy that was imparted to it. So you are really dealing in prayer with the spiritual world, not the material world that you see around you. Even though that spiritual energy can materialize. And lastly, the third component is the physical aspect. So every time you are being told to sit, to kneel, to hold your hands a specific way, each position that you're being told to be in has a meaning. And I'll do a separate video in terms of the different meanings, in terms of when you put in your hands in specific ways, your feet, whatever, has meanings. And those meanings are not hidden. It's not something that's being hidden from you. It's something that you can yourself discover if you ask yourself and you start researching what it means. Having your hands in specific ways, having your hands open towards the sky, what does that mean? What does that do to your own body in terms of your neural system, immune system, in terms of your mental attitude and your mental space? There are positions that are more conducive to being in a meditative state, for example. There are positions that can make you more uncomfortable, so they're going to push you to focus on your body and trying to either deal with the fact that you're uncomfortable or you start hurting. And there are positions that over time, because you're doing it over and over, it offers a certain amount of flexibility to your body that also can translate to your flexibility in your mind. So certain positions and certain prayers have an impact on the physical aspect in terms of how you are sitting, positioning your hands, your head, etc. The timing of it, if you have to kneel a specific number of times, in a specific number of ways, if you have to follow, to be doing that in a specific direction, all of that contributes to not just the physical aspect of doing the thing, but what is going on within yourself at the physical level within your body. So this is why sometimes prayer can be very, very powerful, because it has an impact on all of your bodies. And so it can provide you with a lot of clarity. That's why sometimes when you pray, you feel so much better after praying. You can resource yourself through these different positions, through different movements. But the key here is to understand why you're doing them. Because sometimes you can take those positions and those movements and it's actually hurting you and harming you. And that's part of the reason why you can see people who move from one religion to another, simply because when the the ways you may be called to pray does not match or does not work with you, with your own essence. And it could be at all of those levels. It could be energetically, spiritually, or even just physically. You're not able to sit or to be in the position that is asked or required of you. So that was in terms of how to pray. So every time you are wondering how to pray, you have to go to the specific path that you're referring to, and that's where you'll find the information, either from members of that specific path, members of that church, or of that religious movement, or what have you. For me, I will always say, when you pray, you always pray with your heart. That means whatever you're speaking with your heart. However, it's very important that whatever path you're taking, that you understand the language that you are going to be praying in. Especially if you are crossing a different, for example, if you are converting to Islam, it's very important that you understand Arabic, so that you can communicate in the same language that the divine text is in. Anyways, most Muslim, it is kind of a requirement to pray in Arabic and not to pray necessarily in translations. But I think this is not just a requirement for the religion, it's also a requirement that benefits you, so you can understand what you are saying as you are praying. And it's a way also to show your devotion and your reverence for the religion or the path that you've chosen, by putting in that effort in learning the language that your path is in. The same if you're going for an esoteric path, or if you're going for whatever path spiritually or otherwise that you're going through, it's very important that you master and understand the language that the path in is. And this is why sometimes you cannot be initiated in just 2 weeks, especially if you're initiated in a practice that's outside of the language that is your native language. Because the requirement to me would be for you to understand that native language before you can get initiated into it. Otherwise, you're relying on someone else to make translation that could be inaccurate, translation that could be also misleading, because there could be several different meanings within the terms that are being provided to you, and they only give you one of the meanings, hiding the rest of them. But the other meanings can impact you as much as the one that's being provided to you. So that's why it's important for you to be able to navigate within the language and to be, let's say, how to say it, to be comfortable within that language. Now, the third point I want to touch is why you pray. So it's not just enough that you know what a prayer is and that you've been told how to pray, but that you also know why you're praying. And this deals mainly with your intention. What are you trying to accomplish through that prayer? What are your intentions when you want to either communicate with the divine? What are you doing it for? I'm going to give you a few reasons that I think are natural reasons to want to pray, even if you're not part of a religion, even if you're not part of a specific spiritual path, because prayer is something that's open to anyone. It could be just to nourish and maintain your relationship with the divine. So you make it a point to have a time that's reserved for prayer, especially if you're living a very busy life, for you to take that time off where you kind of like reconvene and maintain that relationship with the divine. As I've mentioned to you, prayer or having a relationship with the divine, you should see it as having a relationship with your mother or your father or a very close friend. You don't go to them just when things are going bad. You go to them as you will do every day to say good morning, good night, what happened during your day, what you are proud of, the praises that you have for them, how much you love them, etc. So it's just like maintaining a regular relationship. The same effort that you put in with your friends, in seeing your friends, speaking to them, caring for them, or your parents, is the same relationship that you need to be maintaining, the same effort that you should put in to maintain with the divine. And prayer is one of those tools. So you can pray also to be reminded of your higher purpose and your relationship to God. So, as I've mentioned, if you're somebody who's having a very busy life, you have lots to do every day, you may just be ingrained in that routine where you have to go to work, you have to do this, and then you may lose yourself and even forget about what is your higher purpose? Your higher purpose is not to go to work every day so you can pay your bills. The higher purpose is something that's much higher, much deeper than that. So, for example, if your job is being a doctor, that's your job. Your higher purpose is probably to help others. That means that in your day-to-day, you're looking at ways where you can help others, whether it is through the knowledge that you have in medicine. But I think it even goes even further in saying, how about not just helping people once they're sick, but how about how you help them prevent them from becoming sick? So reminding you of your higher purpose is going to push you to go that little extra mile that your job task or attribution is not going to push you towards. And that extra miles that look into not just you yourself and the people around you, but to contributions to humanity. And no matter what it is, it could be that you are into technology, or that you are, no matter what your job or your career path or the skill sets that you have that you're developing or acquiring, taking that time for prayer to be reminded of your higher purpose, or to ask what your higher purpose is if you don't know yet, will be highly beneficial, because it will help you push through and go beyond the daily routine of what the system is expecting you to be doing, to go towards what your soul wants to accomplish in this life and the others, if any. You may also pray because you want to ask for guidance and discernment in specific situations. And this is so important, because most people, when they pray or when they want to pray, is because they're going through some things. They need some money, or there's a situation that they cannot deal with, or they're having a hard time dealing with. And that's when they turn to prayer, asking for things, asking for help, asking for this and for that. And it's oftentimes prayer is much more efficient when you pray before you make a decision. Let's say something happens to you, there's a situation at work or a personal situation, you find out your husband is cheating, or somebody at work is trying to seek for your demise or something like that. You have conflicts at work with coworkers and stuff like that. Before you decide, I'm gonna file for divorce, or I'm gonna write them to the boss, take that moment and time of prayer to ask for guidance and discernment, and let that divine wisdom come to you. And it's oftentimes so much better to have asked that question before. The number of times I've spoken to people who basically took that decision and regretted it later on. Because later on they asked for divine intervention, and maybe for some of them, the divine intervention was telling them, you need to go and apologize to that coworker, or you need to, because your retaliation was towards the wrong person. Or you went and filed for a divorce, but you didn't have all the facts. Or you find yourself years later still caring for that person, still hang on to that person. So that's why when you ask for discernment and you pray before you make a decision, then you get the divine guidance that you need, that you should use, that the extra information that you should use to make the information. Of course, you can also pray to celebrate the divine, and I think this is like the one of the easiest and one of the things that should come naturally to you. Celebrating the divine, celebrating the fact that you're still alive, that you are in good health, that you are surrounded by people who love you, being grateful for the people who love you around you. This praying to celebrate the divine is often seen through having gratitude moments, moments where you have of gratitude for the little things in your life or the big things in your life. You're getting married, you can praise the divine for helping you find your mate. You can praise your divine throughout your relationship or your marriage to be just happy to be with this person that you can work things through, that understands you, that doesn't need to be perfect, and that you are able to see their divinity even despite their flaws. And that the person is also able to see your divinity despite your flaws. The same for your children. Your children achieve something. Now they can walk, they can talk, they can relate with you, discuss with you, ask you questions, arguments, present their own argument, their own way of thinking. And when you stay in that element of gratitude, when you're looking at the world and you're saying there's so many different things that are going well, that are going right, that are amazing when you think of it. The simple fact that you managed to wake up this morning from yesterday is also a miracle. So there are many things that you can show and use to praise and celebrate the divine within your life. And sometimes this is also a good way for you to not be hung up onto things that may not necessarily be as easy. So take that time, especially when you think everything is so negative, to look at the little things, the divine intervention that's a bit everywhere around you. You can also pray to thank the divine for the blessings in your life. That's really tied into the praises, into the celebrating of the divine. You can pray to ask the divine for help when facing difficulties or navigating difficult moments. That's a little bit tied, but there's a little nuance between when you're asking for guidance because you are confronted with something or you want to make a decision versus when you're asking for help when you are facing something that's difficult. You can have a friend or a family member that's in the hospital. So you're not asking for guidance in terms of knowing what to do. You're more asking for help and support during this difficult time. For the divine to provide you with the strength to be able to make it through that difficult time. And always remembering that any difficult time is temporary by nature. So those were reasons why you could want to pray. But those were just examples. So you should have many, many other reasons of your own why you want to connect with the divine. The important thing here is for you to know that when you're going to pray, you have to set your own intention. You have to know why you're praying. Otherwise, it becomes something that's mechanical. It becomes something that's transactional. I'm praying because I want to have, $100 in my bank account. And things that are like that are transactional, is oftentimes you're going to get the same dryness that you have in that transaction is kind of like the same dryness you have in the result. And which means also that in order for you to manifest that, you will always have to do the same path. It's not something that's going to maintain it on its own, on itself, just because of the divine power. Versus when you are praising and you're building a relationship, whether it is with God, your ancestors, or whatever, that symbiotic relationship takes a form of its own when it can maintain itself on its own, especially if you're a frequent and regular prayer. So just understand and set your intention in terms of why you are praying, why you are doing it. You shouldn't be doing it just because it's a requirement of your religion. You shouldn't be doing it just because being taught to or required to do so. There has to be something more connected to you more internally, more innerly, something that comes from your deepest soul that may be craving that in connection with the divine. And it's not something that you can force. Nobody can force you to pray, because that inner intention that no one can see, that no one cannot pull out for you, is the vehicle, the motor vehicle of a prayer. Really what you truly think internally when no one is looking, when no one can hear it, etc., is what's so important when you sit down to pray or when you start to pray. This leads us to point number 4, which is what to say when you're praying. So, as I've mentioned, it's foremost very important that when you pray, you speak from your heart. You speak truthfully, genuinely, and openly, because the divine will know if you are lying, if you are being deceitful, if you have other intention. It's going to show in the spiritual world. So speaking truthfully, that's why it's even more important than something that you've been told to recite. Don't get me wrong, the little parenthesis here. There are prayers that have been used for thousands and thousands of years that were there before you came and that were used by people throughout the world. And they are pretty similar even when you go from one religion to another or from one tradition to another. Okay, those are words that have been tested, that have been used so many times that they are kind of becoming used as recitation. However, there's a big, huge difference between you just reciting something for the sake of it because you have to do it, and you reciting it because you believe every single word that's part of that prayer. You reciting it because that prayer speaks the truth from you innerly. Speak or represent exactly how you feel. Represent exactly your intention. So the first thing before you say anything, and this is why I say you have to understand what prayer. If you are presented with a prayer to say, no matter what the context, you need to understand what that prayer states, what it means, so that you can see if it matches with your true essence and with your heart. So that when you pronounce it, when you say those words, you're actually meaning them and it comes from your heart. It's going to be 1,000 times more beneficial for you to just speak your heart, even if your words are not the perfect one, etc. That will have much more power than when you just mechanically reciting something that you don't even understand. Now, if you decide to recite something, a prayer, as I mentioned, make sure you understand the contents, make sure you understand the meaning, make sure you understand the commitment in them. If there are any, certain prayers have commitment within themselves. So that's why you need to read. Before you recite it, you need to read to understand what's the content in there. What am I engaging myself to? What am I committing to when I'm reciting this? Prayers that say, I'm going to be doing this, I'm going to be doing that, I'm not going to be doing this, I'm not going to be doing that. You have to be very conscious of that because those are contracts that you're making. And that means in behind all of those contracts, every action has a reaction, every cause has a consequences. If you do not live up to what you are committing to, then you will have to live with the consequences of that. That's why it's important, it's very important for you, if you are going to recite anything that's being given to you by a teacher or anyone, that you understand truthfully the most at every level what it means, and especially what it means to you, how it implicates you. In addition to understanding, you also have to be clear about your own intention when you're going to pray. You have to know what is the goal that you are aiming to achieve with this prayer. Whether it is to just celebrate and just be happy and grateful for what the divine has done for you, for your life, whether it is to ask for guidance, whether it is to ask for support and help, you need to be clear about that. And as you get clarity about that, that's going to help you more concisely or more fully direct your energy in the direction that you want to. So if you are praying with the intention of being grateful, it's going to help you focus on the things that you are grateful for and send your energy towards those things. Consolidating these things, empowering those things with clarity. Anytime you don't have clarity, anytime you don't understand what it means, you can be taken in other directions that are not necessarily your own, especially if you haven't your intentions that are set out. This is why you can be in a church, or you can be in a religious path or a spiritual path and feel like you're being drained. That instead of being replenished, of being empowered to continue and strive, you feel like you're being more and more drained because, in fact, your energy is being taken, but not in the direction that you're aware of or that you want to. So avoid mindlessly reciting things. Always speaks as you were speaking to your father, mother figure, somebody who's close to you. That will help you also find your words, find be in the state of mind, the space of mind that you need in order to pray. And also, of course, as you say what you want to say, you are speaking to the divine because this is the source of the power that you have. This is the power and the source, the energy that comes from, that enables you to maintain, to be alive, to be able to wake up every day. And that's why it is the highest power that you can pray to, because it is the only living forces that enables you to continue on. No other entity has this power or has the power to help you continue on for as long as you need to as a human being. There are other powers that can help you do this and that, but it's usually temporary and it's fickle, and there's a higher price for it. Whereas when you connect with the divine, the life force that you have was already provided to you by the divine. So the divine already provided you the gift that you're seeking, and just the fact that you're grateful for that gift is a way to just renew that relationship. Just remember that when you're speaking to the divine or when you're praying, this is not a monologue. We spoke a little bit earlier about the distinction between prayer and meditation, how it's oftentimes made. Sometimes it gives the impression that when you're praying, because it's your speaking time, that you just go on and on and on and babble all over the place. Whereas, as I've mentioned, You can do both at the time. Prayer can include meditation, so you may be speaking to the divine and also awaiting for a response, or being open enough that a response, an answer can come to you in that moment of prayer, through a vision, through a sound, through words, through thoughts, etc. That means you're not having a monologue. You're not going to be writing up and just reading your thing anyhow. It's really the way as if you were having a conversation with your grandparents or somebody that you love dearly, that you know the Most High, that somebody you know accepts you fully within your flaws and your imperfection, and someone that's there listening to you open-heartedly. So you're really having a conversation. You're not venting or ranting, which will be a monologue. You don't want anybody to say anything to you. You just want to vomit whatever thing you're going through. That is not the space. That is not something you do during the time of prayer. You speak also to be able to receive with openness, flexibility, and hear what the divine has to say. So that means you may hear or have discernment, and it may not be something that you expected. It may not be the answer that you wanted. Sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes the answer is, this is not the right time. This is not the right way. And you have to have that openness in order to receive that information and to receive it fully. And as I say, you may be speaking to the divine and praying and saying the things, and then you don't hear anything. But you have to be open, because they may be signs in your awakened state, they may be signs within your dreams that are going to bring that discernment to you. So you have to pay attention to your dreams. You have to pay attention to what others may say that may be resonating in your head that convey the answer that you've been looking for. And this is also the reason why sometimes you have to be careful in terms of not focusing too much on the messenger, but focusing on the message. So many times people will pray for the answers and things like that, but then because the answer come in a package form that they do not expect, they refuse the message. And this is just a reminder for you to focus on the message. The messenger may have all of the flows that they may have, etc. But you also have to focus on the message and say, is this message through? Is this message relating to what I've been looking for, asking for? And that's another way for you to continue using your discernment, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to fully receive something that you've asked for. And sometimes, unfortunately, when you are like that, this message may come through many people until you realize, you had your answer all along. Sometimes for some people, the answer they were seeking for has been there for years. But because the messenger didn't look the way they wanted, didn't do it the way they wanted to hear it and all those things, they just, didn't receive it. So it doesn't change the message, and oftentimes also the message or the answer can come in a very kind and sweet form. And as it's not received, it becomes a lot more harder, harsher. And for some people, they only receive it once it's the harshest form of the message. So just be open and have that flexibility. Be inquisitive. Use your discernment. Continue to know if you have questions in your heart that you share with the divine and that you want answers to, then be open to those answers to come to you in all of the forms they could come. Now that we've talked about prayer, what it is, how to pray, why you pray, what to say when you pray, now we'll go to the people who pray for us and how it impacts us. This is a question that I've got periodically in terms of people who are leaving, let's say, the church or leaving their religion and embarking on a new path, and who are wondering what happened when your family who's praying to, the Christ or to Jesus or to the Virgin Mary or to whatever they believe is Allah, if they are praying to you, what the impact that it may have onto you. So I'll start with this. It's very, very important that you understand this. If you avail yourself, if you afford yourself the power of choosing your own path, your own spiritual path, you avail yourself the right and the freedom to choose the religion that you want to, the spiritual path that you want to, then you also have to afford the same privilege to others. Meaning, if you are able to go on your spiritual path, you should also respect when other people are going to a specific religion or on their spiritual journey. And I think this is a reciprocity principle that's a bare minimum. Because if you do not accept for other people to have their own religious freedom or their own spiritual freedom, then do not be surprised if others interfere with your ability or your freedom to choose your own spiritual path. It would just make sense. The same freedom that you're according to yourself, you should afford it to others. And that's just a basic principle. So you cannot be blaming if you decide to leave the church, and you cannot force your family members to come with you on whatever path you're going through. If you want to be respected in your choice of taking a different path or exploring that different path, you also have to afford the same choice to your family members and friends to explore their spiritual path, wherever it leads them, if it's back to religion or to a different religion or to a different spiritual path. That's the number one that you need to understand. Without that basic understanding that your freedom to religion, your freedom to choose your spiritual path, you have to afford the same freedom to others within your life, whether it is your family members and whether it is your friends. So right there, it means that your family and your friends can pray to whatever God, within whatever spiritual system that they want to, that they choose to be part of. And you have to respect that the same way they have to respect the path that you have chosen. Now, if your parents are part of a religion and they keep praying for you, this in itself is not something that's negative. Especially if in their prayer they're praying for your well-being, they're praying for your growth, they're praying for your spiritual growth, they're praying for you to continue to be successful, to be able to find the love of your life and to raise a family, things like that, things that are congruent to what you want in your life. Then there's no conflict. They're just using a different tool, a different path, or something that suits them better to support you in your path, to provide you with the energy that you need to continue and to strive in your own path. Now, where the friction can appear is in the following scenarios that I'm going to discuss now. If this person is praying for you to change, for you to become more of what they think you should be, this can cause problems. Not all the time, but it could cause problems. It could not be an issue so long as you already know where you stand, you already have, your decision is already made, you are very good at directing your own energy, and so you cannot be destabilized. No matter what they're praying to, it's not going to have an impact on you. Now, the problem comes in when the person is praying for something that goes against what you want. Let's say you don't want to have kids and your parents are praying for you to find somebody to have kids with, okay? And you are overtly saying that you don't want to have kids. Now, if you're not sure whether you want to have kids or not, and you're just saying that because you want to be defiant, rebellious, and sometimes you may say things that go against what your parents want for you, not necessarily because you already truly believe in the path that you're on, but just because you want to separate yourself from them. In those kind of scenarios where you yourself do not have a clear direction of what you want in your life, then the energy of your parents praying for you can come and can sway you in other directions. But that's not because of the power that your parents have over you. That's because you yourself, you are undecided. And what do we say when we decide not to make a decision for ourselves, when we're not convinced about the decision or the path that we're on, then other people make decisions for us. Decisions that may very well serve us, or decisions that may be against our own benefits. So that would be the number one aspect where somebody else is praying for you, praying for things that you do not want necessarily, things that do not align where you think you're going. So if you are not clear about what you want and where you stand, then that prayer may sway you and give you doubts about yourself, doubt about what you want to go and do. And this may be why you're always hesitant, because you're not on a stable foundation. You're not sure what you want. So everybody else that's kind of like adding their 2 cents and saying you should be doing this and you should be doing that is basically there pushing you to have a lot more, pushing you to basically have a lot more in terms of a lot more doubt in terms of what you want to do. It could also be a good thing, because that period of doubt may push you to basically take a decision, be more affirmative about what you want, and focus and direct your energy. Or it may lead you to just generate more and more doubt and even lose yourself in a place where you don't really know what you want. So you are going to be in the middle of not knowing what you want, but not wanting to do what they want. And just, constantly being there, in limbo, in some type of limbo. So, as I've mentioned before, if you're very clear about the direction that you want to take, and you're very clear about how you direct your energy, how you use your own energy, then there's very little chance that they can sway you. So no matter what they're praying, it's not going to have an impact for you. You may even be able to still receive the energy that they're sending and transmute it to your own benefits, because whatever you are focusing on, whatever you want, your desire for that, and your concentration, your focus towards that is much more powerful than the desire that they have for you. So you can still receive that energy and transmute it to your own benefits. Lastly, it's not also uncommon for people to refuse others touching them or laying hands on them, especially when they pray, because of the influence they could have, the influence that can ensure. So this is where sometimes you will go and somebody from the church wants to lay hands on you, wants to pray for you, and they want to physically touch you. And that's just another way. If you are somebody who kind of hesitant, you're not sure, this may also, that kind of interference can sway you from one direction, or can push you into further limbo and questioning yourself. So it's well known that if you are not sure, you most of the time you will move away when someone that is going against what you want, whether they know it or not, to avoid them touching you, or to avoid them praying over you, or praying over your children and stuff like that. But again, if you are clear about what you want, then the fact that they're praying over you is not going to have any negative impact. You can just receive that energy and transmute it for your own benefits. And the transmutation does not require you to do any rituals, anything like that. The transmutation is just like when the energy is received, because you're so clear, because you're so convinced, you're so dedicated to the path you're on, that it will automatically convert it into currency for you, into supporting you. The problem comes in when you're not sure. And when one day you feel like it, one day you don't. That kind of leeway is what can disrupt you and disrupt your focus. Now, I want to talk about the power of prayers, because sometimes it's people who become spiritual minimize prayer. A lot of time it's because they see prayer as something that's part of religion, and when they leave the religion, they just think they just should kick everything out of the door. Or they do not realize that spirituality, there's a lot of things that religion took that was based in spirituality, because spirituality existed before religion came to be. Spirituality is the phase before religion comes and start organizing things, start deciding who can come in, who cannot, who you have to, the hierarchy. Most of the churches have a hierarchy within them, the pastor, the archivêque, etc. They have a role that you have to take, you have community you have to take. So before all of the organization came into place, for specific purposes, spirituality was already there. Spirituality is just the connection that you may have with spirit, with the spirit world, with the divine world, which is material but also spiritual. So when God created the earth and everything else, He created both the material aspect that we see and that we can touch, and the spiritual aspect that some of us can see more easily than others, but that's still there. So spirituality is very all-encompassing, because you are able to grasp or to understand that there's a spiritual aspect to everything that's there behind you or around you. So now the power of prayer is that people started praying is not just for no reason. If they didn't see any benefits, they would have stopped praying, and this would have become an obsolete tool. But people are praying because they see a lot of benefits out of it. Through our connection to the divine, we can accomplish miracles, from healing, from being able to find forgiveness, love, from clairvoyance, from discernment, and so much more. Through prayers, we are able to focus also on our spiritual self. We are able to you are able to go beyond the material and to focus on the spirit. So praying is a valuable practice to include in your day-to-day routine. Many only wait for hard times before they start praying. And this is kind of a dichotomy. This is like the part of the problem. It's when you're surrounded by negative energy that you're trying now to exalt a lot more positive energy, that you're trying to resort to praying in order to counter that negativity. Whereas if you are having a regular relationship, a regular praying session, then it becomes more natural. You're not going to find yourself all of a sudden surrounded by that negative force. It doesn't mean that negativity is not going to come towards you, that you're not going to have any challenges. But the amount of negativity that's going to be surrounding you is never going to be to the point when you completely left prayers and you don't use that tool. When you're only calling your grandparents when you have a money problem. Or when you are actually waiting until the money problem is very atrocious before you call on help to anybody for your friends or your family. And sometimes they are able to help you, and sometimes that is it. They're not able to fix anything for you or even to help you. It's way too late. So understand that prayer, like just like anything else, is something that you will see the power of prayer as you practice prayer. Just like anything else, what you will reap is what you invested. The time that you invested, the energy that you invested in your prayer, and that's what you're going to get back. You're not going to see the power of prayer just by not doing anything. However, there are things that we call miracles, meaning that that's being shown to you, and it's being shown to you when someone may pray over you and you feel completely healed. You feel that as you regain, you feel resourced. You feel like you have a boost of energy because that person's prayer, that person's energy is basically being transferred to you, being there to support and value you. And sometimes you may receive that without doing anything. And oftentimes you have to see this as a wake-up call. You have to see this as an opportunity for you to get back to prayer. However, whatever prayer means to you, it could be just being grateful at that moment for the healing you received. And every single day or as often as you can, being grateful for that continued well-being, for your body to be functioning well. Too many people who are in good health take it for granted. And sometimes they wait until they have a chronic disease, or they have a serious disease or a really bad disease before they start realizing. Even when you get the flu or you get a stuffy nose, just the fact that should be a reminder for you to see, how well and how easily you breathe normally when you're not sick. And to be grateful to have that reminder so that you can hold on to that state of being well. So it's kind of the same thing. When somebody does a miracle, when a miracle appears against you, when somebody does a miracle to you or in your life, or you witness a miracle, that should be a reminder for you to say, how can I be more grateful for all of the wonderful things happening? Having a baby is a miracle. Giving birth to a healthy baby is a miracle. Finding your mate, even sometimes finding a working environment that's conducive to you, that's really helping you grow, where people are just like supporting and love you. Having friends that are like that. So there's so many different things in life that could be a reminder for you to just say, maybe I should be praying a little bit more. Maybe I should be showing through prayers my gratitude to the divine a little bit more. How can I do that every single day? How can I show more of that gratitude every single day? And doing it, as you say, as a routine, as a practice every single day, it's also a way to strengthen your connection to the divine. And of course, the closer you are to the divine, and a little bit harder it is for all the negative forces to just come and displace you, or they will have a harder time to do that to you. Not that they're not going to try, but they're going to have a harder time doing that to you, whether if you're having a routine of prayer. That's going to build up the energy and the protection that you may have just for that prayer alone. As I've mentioned a little bit before, it's so important when you pray before you make a decision so that you include the divine within your decision making process. And so, the same way, you will see the power of prayer a lot more if when you include the divine within that process, the power that you will see, the manifestation that you will see will be a lot more stronger than when you wait, make your decision on your own without any discernment about anything, and then you wait to ask for a miracle, basically. Even though miracles do exist and are there, as I told you, sometimes miracles are also a reminder, an opportunity for you to change your course because you are in a course that's not a good one for you, for your own benefit. So the miracle intervene so that you are reminded that there's another path for you where prayer and communion with the divine is really waiting for you, no matter the form that it may take for you, that you want it to take. And that's a lot more powerful sometimes versus when you see the protection that you can have on a daily basis for you and for your family when prayer is part of your regular routine. Many spiritual paths encourage prayer, have prayer already built into whatever tradition you're going through. So if you are exploring different traditions or different spiritual paths, search and look for how is the connection with the divine? In what form does it take place? Do they call it prayer? How is it? What are the different rules, or what are the ways to maintain that relationship? That also would be very, very beneficial because it will also help you see how powerful. What are the examples of powerful prayers that can give you? Sometimes people need to understand the benefits sometimes before getting into it. But as I say, sometimes a prayer is just a way to show gratitude to the divine for something as basic as being alive. There's two more points that are left. The first one is praying for negative or bad things. So, since prayer is a tool through which you can express many things, we know that there are people who pray for bad things. These people may be praying for revenge. They may be praying for the demise of someone else. They may be praying for somebody else to be hurt, things like that. They may be praying in their jealousy and their pain, using prayer to express their pain instead of using prayer for good. So prayer as a tool, because you can use it to manifest, you can use it to ask for different things. There are people who use it in a negative way. They are using their prayers to, wish you bad things, wish you, you or people you love, things are really negative. And there's many dangers associated with that because whatever you praying, whatever negative, when you praying for something negative to happen to somebody, okay, you are opening a door for that energy to come back to you. And you really have to understand at the spiritual energetical level when you are the energy that you're sending out is the energy that you're going to receive. So never think that when you're thinking that you're sending out negativity that it's never going to come back to you. Now, we can have a discussion in terms of when it comes back to you, what you can do or what you cannot do. That's a different discussion. But you have to be clear and aware that when you're sending out negativity is going to come back to you, come back to its creator. So you have to be aware of that. We make a clear distinction between someone who wish you bad things, who wish that your marriage will end or wish that you have an accident or something like that, versus someone who's in prayer expressing their sadness for something that happens to them, expressing maybe even their jealousy and saying, I'm lonely, I'm not finding anyone, and most of my closest best friend just got engaged, all of my friends are engaged, and it makes me so sad seeing them so happy. You see the distinction between you wishing somebody to have an accident in a car and you expressing the sadness that you have in a situation that you're going through and going to the divine to help you for support and strength, to say, help me be able to just be happy for my friends while I await for my mate to find my own mate as well. So there's a distinction there. Both of these people could be very sad at the time, but it's how you express that sadness and what you want, what your intention behind expressing that sadness. One person is really expressing their sadness to seek for support to get through this difficult, temporary, hard time. And the other one is expressing their sadness to ask for something bad to happen to the people that you perceive are hurting you or hurt you. So it's very important that you are able to make the distinction, and that you understand the consequences of you wishing ill things onto other people by through using prayer. So you basically go into the divine and asking the divine to do to kill someone or to hurt someone else. And oftentimes it's not even the divine doing that. Oftentimes it's the intention that you have and the energy that you are sending out that may not even cause harm to that person, but may come back and harm you. So it's important that you're aware of that, and that you are also aware that there are people who are doing that. Because oftentimes when we speak about prayer, you more focus on what you are doing. And you are thinking, well, I'm not doing anything wrong. That's great. But you have to be aware that other people are not like you, and they are willing to use this tool on an energical level to try to cause harm to other people. And I know a lot of time people will talk about, black magic, dark forces, and stuff like that, and focus more on things like that, because for them, it has to be through some dark avenues that people are trying to do and hurt you. But something as basic as praying to a negative entity, for example, praying for negative things to happen to other people. So you can see how prayer as a tool can be used even to do something that's negative. And it's just like a knife. A knife can be used wonderfully to cut the food that you need, to prepare the food that you need, to help you cut things that you need to build something else, to help others. Or it can be used to cut other people and hurt other people. So it isn't the tool itself, it is the person using it. And you have to recognize if you have friends or family members that are praying negatively, that are wishing bad things to other people and things like that, you need to be aware of that, because that starts to become in your proximity. And what you are proximate to may come at some point and influence you one way or the other. Even just the simple fact that you tolerate that kind of behavior around you is already a mark of that influence on you. So be conscious, always use your discernment, and be aware that your own prayer for yourself and your family may also counteract the negative prayers that are made by other people who are jealous or whatever else. And then the last point was the energy you exalt every day may be more important than your time of prayer. So it's really related to what I've just mentioned in terms of the people who are praying, counteracting the people who are praying for negativity, is that prayer initially starts as a moment, for most of us, it starts as a moment that we curtail in our routine or in our day life and say, okay, at this time I'm going to go and pray. I'm going to add this to my schedule, that I'm going to carve that time to pray, dedicated to prayer, to commune with the divine. However, as you go this and you do it routinely, you start saying that prayer is not just about that particular moment. Prayer is about what you do beforehand and what you do afterwards. What you do beforehand, because if you spend your time being negative, hurtful towards others, negative towards others, and bitter, the 1 or 2 prayers that you may do where you humble yourself, where you calm yourself down, where you are more loving, may not be enough to counter the negativity that you produced when you were not praying. So if you are always, cursing out your neighbors for no reason, being very disrespectful, sarcastic to other people for no reason, and then, you decide to go and pray and start saying your gratitude to the divine, the negativity that you created during the day may not be offset by the couple of prayers that you're going to be making, or by the prayer that you're making. Because essentially you kind of like trying to balance off, or trying to pretend to be a good person, even though for the most of the day you are being very rude and very negative to others. And all of that negativity will build up, and eventually it will start affecting you. And the 1 or 2 prayers that you may make may not be sufficient for the negativity to be transmuted. Okay, so the negativity is going to stay around you, and eventually the people you're being negative towards you are going to start either to distance yourself and isolate you, or to start being negative towards you as well and calling on to more negativity towards you. So it's important that you see prayer not just as a moment in time in your day or in your routine, but you see that prayer is affected and will affect the rest of your experience, like what you do before, what you do after. So this example is also seen in religion. Sometimes we say before you go and commune with the divine, you have to come with the divine with clean hands. And a lot of people take that literally because in a lot of different religion, you have to wash your hands and sometimes also your feet before you go pray. You have to be clothed, wearing specific clothes. You cannot be coming dirty when you're wanting to pray. But there is a spiritual, energical aspect of that. You just curse at your brother or your parents, and then you will come in to pray. And most of the spiritual practices, they will tell you, go amend things with your family and with your friends and stuff like that before you come to God, before you come to the divine. Because there's no point for you to be cursing at everybody else and then, oh yeah, I'm just going to go and come and humble myself before God after cursing everybody else. It doesn't work like that. They say when you come there with clean hands and a clean heart, meaning you may have said things that you didn't mean, you may have done things that you didn't want to do, then go amend those things. Go say you're sorry to the people that you have wronged. And that in terms, even whether they accept your apology or not, that's something else. But once you go on and do that, then you can go and humble yourself before the divine and have this communion, that's prayer with the divine. So someone who always strives to do the right thing, the divine thing, is in a perpetual prayer, in a perpetual relationship with the divine. Even if that particular person doesn't have a specific time for prayer, doesn't set a specific time for prayer, or doesn't even know what you will mean by saying you're praying or not. So that's why you have to really understand that for a lot of us, prayer is a thing, only because most of us do not strive on a daily basis on every action that we're taking to do the divine thing on a daily basis. And there are a few people that are doing that. They don't need necessarily to take time out for their prayer because every time they have a decision to make, they are thinking, what would God want me to do? And they are doing it sometimes since they were a child, always asking that. Somebody punches you and you say, what will God want me to do? Before punching the other person or before walking away. So that, in that sense, they're having a continual, perpetual relationship with God. They are continually in prayer every single day, every minute of the day, every second of the day. And that's ultimately, I think, where a lot of us will reach as we continue to be in prayer and to have time for prayer and to do prayer and to practice prayer and to practice including the divine in our thought process, in our decision-making processes, so that prayer actually erases itself and prayer becomes part of your full life. You no longer need to set time aside to think of the divine. The divine is there constantly present with you. I have to say that I'm not there. There's been periods of my life where I will feel that the divine is constantly with me. And then there are times where life will get busy, I'll get distracted, I'll be doing this and that. And there is that kind of distance where I actually physically need or mindfully need to remind myself to set time aside to commune and be closer to the divine. But there are times also where it becomes naturally and you can see it from afar, somebody who's trying you or doing things, and you can see, this is another call for me to do the right thing and to act the appropriate way, to do the divine things in the situation, and to do it without needing to formally set aside a time for prayer. You could be in the street and you see something going on and you decide to act divinely towards that person, towards that situation. And I think that's the goal for most of us who are interested in prayer or who are interested in building a connection and maintaining and nourishing the connection with the divine. So that it is not just what you say, it is also how you conduct yourself throughout the day and throughout the night. So I hope this discussion about prayer was helpful to you for some of the questions that you had. Of course, again, depending on the different path that you may be exploring or undertaking, the answer may be may change a little bit in terms of the specific. I wanted to say as general as possible so that at least you can envision the different points and think about those different points and how prayer is part or isn't part of your life, or how you will want to make it part of your life, understanding that prayer is not a religious concept. Prayer is something that existed way before religions were created, and prayer was just a conduit for us to continue having a relationship with the divine, even though the true relationship with the divine is including the divine in everything that we do, not compartment, not having a different compartment, a different session, a single time where we with the divine, but including and integrating the divine in everything that is our being, and recognizing that the power of prayer is truly the power of the divine within us, and the power of us through the divine.